Hi folks, Six Slices here. Now, this is a beast. This is another of my high-end series that one of the knives that have been lent to me by a friend who lives near me, who has a very extensive high-end knife collection. And in some ways, this isn't high-end. It's expensive, but if you bought it by the pound, it's probably actually one of the cheaper knives, certainly in his collection, because it is huge. It fills the screen, and it's not because I've zoomed in any closer than I normally do. This knife is shown at exactly the same magnification as I usually use. And just by way of comparison, here is a Swiss Army knife. This is the 93mm Pioneer. And it was absolutely dwarfed by this behemoth. Now this is the Spyderco Subvert. Now, yeah, I mean, it's not a cheap knife, but at the same time, it's not a Shirogorov or anything like that. But it is difficult to get hold of because every time they make them, they don't make very many of them and they sell out very, very quickly. It is also, as well as being a huge big knife, it's also a very good knife. I mean, one could criticize it. It's only S30V steel, but I like S30V steel. One of my favorite everyday carry knives, the Enzo PK70s. One of which, not this one, but the one with the titanium bolster, I carry literally every day. I've had it for, I don't know, 4 years or 5 years or something. I have never sharpened it. I've stropped it very, very occasionally, and it always is there for me when I want it, and it's always very sharp. The other thing about the PK70, which I like, other than the fact, I mean, it's beautifully made, the fit and finish on these is superb for a knife that only costs around £100, is they're made in Taichung by the Taiwanese, and this knife is also made in Taichung. And I will be showing you another Spyderco in a couple of 3 weeks time, which is also made in Taichung, and I think some of the best knives in the world come from there. It's just if you want superior knife quality manufacture, that's the place that you obviously go to in the world. But this thing, I mean, its most significant thing is it's just a beast. I mean, it really is huge. That's got to be 3mm thick blade stock, which, by way of comparison, I say to the Swiss Army knife, you know, it's more than double the thickness of the Swiss Army knife. In terms of length, it's way longer than the Swiss Army knife. No way this is ever going to be UK legal carry unless you've got a good reason for it. But actually, I suspect this is one of those knives that you could make a good argument for. Because one of the problems with the UK legal knife thing is this here, which, although it's one of my favourite knives and I would love to carry it every day, how can you make a strong argument for why you need this lockback when you could be carrying something like the Shing, which is just as solid, just as usable, but isn't a lockback? What's the argument that you're going to put up that you absolutely need that lockback? I mean, I might argue it's got a lighter action, it means I can open and shut it. Well, yeah, but that's not going to cut any ice. This, on the other hand, if you worked in an outdoor environment, if you worked as a gardener or a forester or anything like that, you could make a good argument for using this, because it genuinely is a good heavy chopping, usable chopping knife. Though if you're going to make that argument, you'd probably make that argument for carrying a sheath knife, but you know, that's just me. But anyway, this knife, so you've got this satin S30V blade, made in Taichung in Taiwan. It's a big solid thing. You've got the handles are orange G10 over, I believe, is a titanium frame with an orange backspacer. So this is made to be an outdoor knife. This is made to be, you know, if you drop it in the woods, you'll be able to. Oh, it's got a fairly standard Spyderco clip on the back. Yes, this is the sort of knife that's made for if you drop it on the floor in the woods or out in the grass or whatever, you're going to see it because it's a very distinctive colour. It's going to jump out at you. It's got nice, I like these pivots. They look like custom pivots, but they're actually just a Torx T, might be T8 or T10. So that, you know, if you want to take it apart, they're easy enough to find. You don't have to go and find some sort of special tool, but they have the aesthetics of a custom pivot. In terms of lock, we're talking here about a liner lock, but it's a liner lock that's thicker than most frame locks. It's very, very solid. It has a strong action. It's not a bad action, but it's the sort of thing that gives you confidence. You know this knife is, sometimes with a liner lock, the metal can be so thin and the amount of pressure required to shut it so light that you can start to worry that you know, it might fail on you. This thing is as strong as any frame lock. The only thing it doesn't do that a frame lock does is that you're never pressing on the lock bar no matter what you're doing. So with a frame lock, generally speaking, if you're pressing on the lock bar, you're pushing it and making it close more firmly. With this, you're never doing that because it's got this handle scale on the outside of it. But to all intents and purposes, it acts like a frame lock. It's really, really solid. You know, it's never going to come unstuck. Internally relieved as well, which I always like. Not that it matters because you've got this cover on it, but still I prefer to see it internally relieved. Now I think that there's no lock bar insert, so it's presumably carburized because it doesn't suffer from lock stick. So the titanium against the steel seems to just work. So I take it that they've carburized the end of that titanium to make it hard. The clip is a simple steel clip, and I've always said I actually like a simple steel clip because they work. Personally, I'm not a big fan of clips in general, but if you're going to have one, I find that when you have these fancy titanium milled ones, they never work as well as simple plain steel. Even the simple titanium ones that Chris Reeves used are never really quite as good as a simple metal clip. So this one works really well. You've got a lanyard hole there as well, which again I think is probably quite useful if you're using this in the outdoors. You might well want to either have a lanyard to give you some extra grip if you're using it for sort of chopping or anything like that, or just to stop you losing a thing, you can tie it onto something. You know, just so you don't drop it. Now in terms of opening, the action is nice and smooth. I can do it. If I can do it, literally anybody can do it, because I'm not good at opening Spyderco type knives. All the ones that I have, which are small ones, I mean the biggest I've got is a dragonfly. It's also quite sharp. I just cut myself with it, but you can yeah, I can open that quite straightforwardly, and I can't shut it like many other people can do, but I bet you it'll do this. Yeah, there we are. It'll drop shut, but that's not really a surprise because that blade is really big and heavy. Once it gets moving there's very little is ever going to stop it. In fact, I suspect because of that it would probably be quite easy to flick open if you had that sort of flick action that I just don't have. But actually, I really like this knife. It's funny, you know, I was looking in this sort of selection of knives, and I've got about 50 odd to choose from. This one jumped out at me as one I wanted to do really early on, not the £1,000 plus Shirogorovs so much I like the £1,000 plus Shirogorovs, I have to say, but this is the one that I wanted to do really early on. So I've got that. We'll be looking at another Spyderco in a few weeks' time, and doing a comparison. Another Taichung Spyderco, but it couldn't be more different. Anyway, I think that's probably enough of this for now. I really like this knife. It's such a good knife. It's the Subvert from Spyderco, and if you like the stuff, please give it a thumbs up. As I say, there'll be another high-end knife coming up next week, and then another Spyderco in a couple of 3 weeks' time, and a comparison with this one. So if you want to see those, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. Thank you.